local authority in Limerick yourself, where the issue of rents is a function of the management. But there is a section in the Act which allows for a Section 140 which takes that power from the manager. And there has been a number of local authorities that have passed Section 140s that are now compelling the manager legally not to pass on the charge. Those motions, I understand, have been supported by your own parties in government at local authority level. So I just want you to deal with that there, because there's an assumption that you give that this will be, this is additional money to local authorities. But do you recognise in areas, and I expect that there'll be many other local authorities passing the same motion in the forthcoming weeks and months, that in those circumstances, Monaghan, for example, is one in particular that I can reference. Councillor McCarthy proposed a motion there, and it's been accepted by the council, and the management says, look, he's legally tied my hands, I now cannot pass that charge on, which he can't. So therefore, this will be a charge on the local authority, which will take money off them. So on one hand, this stream of money will go to, some of it will go to the local authorities, but that will be taken by government from the other hand, where there'll be a reduced funding from the other hand, but also in terms of the local authority housing stock that they have, in situations where the management can't pass that on to the local authority tenants, which I believe they shouldn't anyway, and they will actually have to give back money to the state, so they'll be at a net loss. And if you can explain that. I would also like to talk, if we had more time, which we're not going to get to in terms of the housing adaptation, I can say that while you're right in some of what you've said, that the adaptation of a house could devalue it, particularly if it's somebody that would be maybe wheelchair and you had the kitchens and so on and everything that would be lowered down. However, the circumstances that I've outlined to you, which are personal to me, and I've been in the houses, are situations where people are severely disabled, people who are paralysed, where it requires an adaptation, not only an adaptation to the house, but an extension to the house, where there is an additional room that has been built on, there's an additional bathroom that has been built on, there has been slopes that have to be created or ramps that have to be created. Though that actually does cost money, Minister. And I genuinely believe that if we had time to tic-tac on this issue, that you would amend this, because I don't think that it's your intention to have people like that there affected. But if you look at what's been done in the bill, and this is an amendment that I brought forward in the original section, and I do welcome the fact that it goes a certain way in this amended bill. But if you look at what you've done, people who got the grants to adapt their houses will get that money taken off the value of their property, whatever that means for them. It'll be of a benefit. But people who didn't get the grants, so let's take Joe and Mary. So Joe was unemployed. He got a grant of about €10,000 to adapt his house under the housing adaptation grants, and therefore now today, Joe, when he's calculating the value of his house, is able to take €10,000 off, and he pays the charge on that there. Whereas Mary, who was working at the time, didn't get the adaptation grant because it was means tested. So Mary had to dig into her own pocket and pay the €10,000, and she doesn't get the value of it. So just think about that there. Joe, who got the money from the state to carry out the adaptation, is getting 10,000 value off his house, where Mary, who didn't get a penny from the state because she was mean tested, doesn't get anything. It doesn't make sense, and it's just a mistake that has been done by either your officials or yourself and should be corrected. I know it's not going to happen now. I would ask you that you look at that there at Shannon Stage.
Thank you. Deputy Darragh Murphy, the question.
Yes, question for here. Look, Minister, I know that before the Finance Committee, the Chairman of the Revenue Commissioners made reference to this, and you've touched on it yourself this evening, as well as have other deputies, and it's the area of houses with flood risk, more specifically insurance. As you'll be aware, there's significant work planned and ongoing about flood prevention measures, and while you have indicated that houses that may have a reduced value by virtue of not having insurance, or in fact being in a flood risk area, can take that into account, I was just wondering if you could clarify that if the position changes in a number of years whereby flood risk measures are put in place and a house value increases, that there will be a retrospective capacity to take into account that for the purpose of the period in question, that flood risk and indeed lack of insurance can be taken into account, and that while the current value may jump by virtue of of flood prevention measures and insurance subsequently being made available, that will in fact be taken into
Thank
account.
you, Deputy McWallace. On this section,
Yeah, well, as much on this section as everyone else here. Ministers.
well, I'll ask you to do your best.
Thanks very much, Last Concorda. I'll do my very best. Minister, just given that I probably won't get a chance to come in again on it, with regard to the issue of pyrite, I do think that if you have a housing estate with 40 or 50 houses and 2 or 3 have been certified as having pyrite, I can tell you, Minister, even just from a building point of view, the possibility of several other houses having pyrite in that estate are massive. It's the same stone going in. The stone would have been in all those houses together, right? You wouldn't be preparing the ground for one every second day or whatever. You'd be bringing the houses up together, and they would have all got the same treatment, the same stone, and they have the same problems coming down the tracks as the ones that have already been exposed as having pyrite. And aside from the fact that under no circumstances could you dream of selling one of them houses, bar it was given a certificate proven beyond all doubt that it didn't have pyrite, the chances of many of those houses having pyrite are great, because the stone came from the same quarry, went in around the same time. And really, it's completely unfair on people who own these houses that they couldn't. These are houses that you'd be hard set to give away, unlike the ones you were talking about. Selling a house with pyrite in a pyrite estate where any of them had it, it'd be just about impossible today. And I would ask you, Minister, to consider the people caught in this dilemma, because it is really grossly unfair to expect them to pay a property tax on a property that is in a very difficult place through no fault of their own. Thank you.
I want to clarify one matter for the Minister, because he asked a question. He said he was unsure about what I had said. What I had said, Minister, was that there is no difference between a home affected by pyrite and a home affected by radon.
You have that amendment in section 2.
I have.
Yeah.
But you see, if I don't use the opportunity now, these people have guillotined this. So I'm going to use the opportunity, and we can't be stopped, because this is like a race to the bottom as quick as we can go. We have to get in our say, because we won't get it later on, because later on it'll be voted on, and that's the end of it. So I want to impress it on you, Minister, and I will put it in writing. But this is very genuine. What I'm asking is the people who got an exemption because their homes are worthless virtually because of pyrite. And I don't take on board what you were saying, that a house is actually worth nothing, because you can have a house that is worth nothing. Would you, or would I, or would anyone inside here want to buy a home where somebody has died because of a health issue that is still in that house, and where they have to pay money every year to try and keep that badness, that gas at bay? Nobody would want to live in that house. I certainly, if I was given it for nothing, I wouldn't want to take it. I wouldn't want anyone of my family to live inside in it. And I don't think you would either, or I don't think any of these people would. And there isn't. This is not opening the floodgates, Minister, to thousands and thousands of houses. There isn't that many houses in Ireland that are affected by radon. And what I am saying is that the government should make the same exception for those people as they made for the people who suffer from pyrite in their homes. And I again compliment the campaigners. But what I'm trying to do is put right or wrong, and that is that you should go ahead and say, yes, you are going to make an allowance, the exact same, there is no difference. And the Taoiseach answered me here mornings about this issue, and I have to be honest, he gave and I'm very respectful to the Taoiseach, but he gave a nil-informed answer to me, because what he was saying was that the pyrite, like Deputy McWallace says, that it's in the actual building. The Taoiseach was saying, well, this is coming from the ground up, so that's different. God damn it, Minister, it is all the same. If the house is bad, the house is bad, whether it is pyrite or whether it is radon. And if the house is worthless and not something that you can sell on the open market because somebody would not want to buy it. Surely be to God, you can take that on board and make the allowance and put through my amendment tonight. That's what I'm asking.
Deputy Noel Grealish, brief.
Brief, maybe a few of these issues might have been raised before I came in here this evening. Unfortunately, I had to go out tonight. Minister, I suppose in the next couple of weeks, hundreds, millions of people are going to receive letters from the revenue. Probably 60% of them never, ever received a letter from the revenue. And I think that is going to have a huge effect on a lot of people out there, a lot of the people in the private sector, a lot of people in the public sector that have ordinary factory jobs who would never find themselves in a situation to receive a letter from the Revenue Commissioners, and a lot of people don't like to get a letter from the Revenue Commissioners, and I think that will have a huge effect on people out there when they suddenly even read the small print, what will be printed in these letters, and it will put the fear of God into a lot of people, and particularly the elderly. Minister, I'm dealing with a 93-year-old lady at the moment who is very afraid of this letter that's going to come in the post, and she's rang me 3 times on it. Just an issue, Minister, where I think in the bill it states that if you undervalue the house, that you're going to be caught with interest and penalties if the revenue come back and deem that, or when you sell the house and you have underdeclared it. What about if a lot of people out there, and they're law-abiding citizens, people that have never broken the law and don't want to get into trouble with the revenue or with any government department, if they overvalue the house for the property tax and the house is sold below the value that they've put on their house, well, will they get a rebate back from the local authorities, Minister, on this issue? And maybe you might be able to clarify that. Also, constantly, every government minister, including the Taoiseach and yourself, has said that this is for services within the local community, for services of roads, lights, footpaths. What about people that are in housing estates that are governed by management companies who have to, or some of them are paying up on €1,000 management fees? Now, they're going to get caught also with property charges. Cannot, if that is the case, I believe that local authorities should take these estates in charge and cover the costs of the services within these estates, and the residents and the people living in these houses shouldn't have a double burden put on them by having the management companies charging them and also the local authority charging them, and technically the local authority will not be giving them any services because they'll have to pay for the water in and the water out when the water metering is put in place later this year. Also issue, and I'll just finish on this issue, in my own constituency of Galway, not too far from me, there was 15 houses flooded in the 2009 flood. None of them houses now can receive any insurance, bar one house, I think, got insurance. I've raised that issue with you. You advised me to go to Michael Kemp, the insurance regulator. He told me he couldn't do a thing about it. He had no control whatsoever over this. Even where I live, I received a letter last week from the insurance company, and if I get flooded, half Galway City will be flooded, where I was informed that I will not receive flood cover. I don't mind. I wrote back to the insurance company. I said, OK, what are you going to knock off my house if you're not going to cover me for flood? Because I won't be flooded, because I know I won't be flooded. But that's what they're at. And these people that are in these houses, and a colleague behind you there has already said, these houses are worthless. If they went to sell them, nobody's going to buy them. And I want to compliment the OPW, who have done, in all fairness, tremendous work in the locality in trying to alleviate that, but that will not still give anybody the confidence to go in and buy a house that was flooded. And I think, Minister, they are going to have to be seriously looked at because they are actually living in worthless properties.
Thank you, Deputy. I call him.
I didn't say they were worthless. I said that they were more than that's prevention measures. No, I said I can't
Deputy John, briefly.
Thanks. I'll be very quick. Minister, thanks for your answer. Look, one of the most contentious issues on this is the fact that people in some areas, like Dublin, like Wicklow, will pay several times more than people, for example, in your own constituency. Minister, in your answer to that issue raised, and I have amendments tabled on it, you said the reason they pay more is because the higher value of the house is a function of higher local services. Now, you and I both know that not only is that not the case, the opposite is the case. The councils do not pay more money to provide better services in areas where the house prices are higher. The spend per person for the Dublin Council is less than anywhere else. So were we to follow your logic, I agree with your logic. Your logic is what should be in here, which is the money should be used to pay for local services. That's not what's going to happen. So I would appeal to you to apply your own logic to this. And if you're going to charge people, charge them for the local services provided, and don't charge people in Dublin, don't charge people in Wicklow, don't charge people in other areas several times more for services that not only don't cost several times more, they cost less because of economies of scale. Thank you.
Calling the Minister.
I have quite a number of questions, and I'll see can I get through them, be as helpful as I can. The big difference between pyrite damaged homes and homes that have a radon gas problem is that, according to the Department of the Environment, the radon gas problem can be remediated at very low cost, whereas the pyrite is far more expensive. Now, I rely on the technical information on housing on the Department of the Environment, so I'll read you the note I have from them on radon gas. I'm advised by the Minister for the Environment, Community and Local Government that high radon levels in homes are easy to identify, and once identified are relatively simple to fix. The testing of houses for radon is a relatively straightforward and non-invasive process. It is also inexpensive, with a test costing around €56. And if the radon levels are found to be below the national reference levels, no further action is necessary. Where radon levels are found to be high, the installation of an active radon sump is the most common and effective remediation method in Ireland. A sump can be installed within a day and with very little disruption to the house, as the work is carried out outside the house. This method can reduce the highest radon concentrations, typically by 90%. An alternative approach is to increase indoor ventilation. This can reduce radon levels by up to 50%, and thus is suitable for homes with up to twice the national reference level. I believe the National Radon Control Strategy for Ireland is the most appropriate way to address the issue of radon contamination, and I do not feel it appropriate to provide exemptions from the local property tax to cater for this. The local property tax is self-assessment tax based on the market value of property. In the first instance, it will be a matter for the liable person to calculate the tax due based on his or her assessment of the market value of property. So you can see that it's not similar to the pyrites issue, and according to the Department of the Environment, it can be remediated at very low cost indeed.
From a man whose wife died because of radon in his house.
Minister,
I'm sorry for interrupting, Minister.
Minister.
But it's a very emotional issue when somebody
I know
dies
it's
in
here.
the house.
I know
And
it's-
the department seem to do it. They don't get that.
I know it is, but what I'm suggesting to you is that according to the technical people in the Department of the Environment, if there are high radon levels in a house, it can be fixed at pretty low cost. And the test to establish the level of radon in a house can be done for, I think the figure I gave was €56. So, I mean, what I'm trying to establish, it's a different case from pyrites, and while there'll be an exemption from pyrites, there won't be an exemption from radon. But of course, if somebody thinks that the problem with radon has significantly reduced the value of their homes, that would be reflected in the value they attribute to their house. And if they put a short note to that effect on the return, I'm sure that will be taken into account. Deputy Fleming suggested that householders would be deterred from building extensions onto houses because of the property tax. That will not be the case. The initial valuation in 2013 will stand for 3 years. So any extension built during that period will not lead to an increase in the payment in that time. It's also unlikely that the full cost of an extension would be added to the full market value of a property, even in the next valuation period of 2016, because I think we know that extensions don't always enhance the value of houses. And secondly, certainly they don't enhance them to what the extension frequently costs. Deputy Matty McGrath talked about the revenue interfering in the by-election process, and I know he probably didn't mean it as a serious charge, but I think I should still put it on the record that revenue are statutorily independent in carrying out their duties. There can be no question of interfering with the basis on which they administer the tax system in the context of by-elections or indeed any other circumstances. I heard you all right. I heard you all right.
The Minister has the floor.
I heard you. I heard you.
That's what I said.
Yeah.
Different question.
Yeah, but if I said, well, if something is going to be interfered with, it implies that the person going to be interfered with is willing to be interfered with.
No.
That was the charge. That was the charge.
No.
You suggested the revenue would hold back the assessment letters which are due to go out, and that they hold them back in a particular constituency because there was a by-election pending in the constituency. The revenue don't operate that way. One of the best things we have in the country is a public service that's above reproach, and particularly the revenue have very, very high standards indeed. And they have very high standards indeed. And
Yes, you're turning him into the Minister. Turning him into the people.
He said he's going to get the media. He's going to need the
all the deputies on the Dáil committee last week were full of their praise for the chairperson of the Revenue Commission.
With respect for the Minister, please.
Deputy Dara Murphy, on the issue of flooding and flood relief works, value may rise considerably after relief works are carried out. However, if value was previously self-assessed honestly, there will be no comeback from the revenue. So there will be no retrospective or retroaction activity by the revenue on this. Indeed, values determined now will be valid until 2016. So if your flooding problem is remediated in September next, and the value of your home goes up, the value that you have self-assessed at will prevail until the next valuation date of 2016. So I think that's an important point to clarify. Deputy McGrath talked about a couple of issues, made a lot of points, talked about the colour of people's shirts.
They won't have a shirt after this. They won't have a shirt. Be bareback. You better give him a skull then. A second hand one.
Deputy Doherty raised the issue of local authorities. He's correct. The Act or the bill says that, the original Act says that the charge will be a charge on the local authority. And then if the local authority decide to absorb that charge, and some local authorities still are in a position to absorb charges, then they're free to do so. If on the other hand they want to pass it on, if it's a reserve function, well, it'll be a responsibility of the elected members to do so. When I was a member of a local authority, it was a reserve function. If that has been transferred to management or transferred over and back, well, what's local government about? If the people that are elected to local government can't take the responsibility, to make decisions in cases like this. So we can wash our hands at it if the people we elect to councils aren't capable of making decisions along these lines.
Please.
Next bit I have here. Somebody inquired about management fees. I have a note here: requirement to pay management fees is not relevant in determining liability to property tax. Properties in managed estates to which such fees apply would have been purchased by their owners in the knowledge that would be taking on a commitment to partake in and to fund the management of the estate, and that it was the intention that many such estates would not be taken in charge by local authorities, nor would it be appropriate for local authorities to do so. Management fees in these estates often include services such as refuse collection, maintenance of common areas, and a sinking fund for certain repairs to buildings. These are costs which homeowners in other households have to fund themselves for their own property. Some do.
Not apartments, not housing.
All right. Deputy Michael Wallace made the point that if some houses in a housing estate are affected by pyrite, then the whole estate should be exempted, because the same conditions would prevail right through the estate. Well, again, that's a matter for the Department of the Environment to decide. Some briefing notes I have seen from them would suggest that different consignments of gravel from different sources were used in building in different parts of estates. So the condition wouldn't apply through the whole estate. They also made the point that the weather conditions at the point of pouring the foundations would have made a difference in many estates. Again, I'm not on top of the technical issues, but this is the Department of the Environment advice. So, I mean, I have enacted, or I'm about to enact with the help of the House, an amendment to exempt pyrite damaged houses, and the Department of the Environment would have to operate to that mandate. Now, the manner in which they make the exemptions will be a matter for them, but I think the guidelines are clear, and whether that means exempting whole estates or portions of estates, that will be a matter for the Department of the Environment. But they have, from their flat rate charge, which they were responsible for collecting themselves, exempted many ghost estates, quite a lot of estates around the country. So they'll follow the same procedure, but the decision will be for the Department of the Environment in accordance with the Act.
It would have been very unusual when stone come up from two different quarries for an estate like that. That would have been something bigger than now we've engaged in. Stone, 9 times out of 10, they engage in
No, I mean, it's also true that you get estates that were built by several builders. I mean, in my own city, I know of estates where, you know, the first 70 were built by one builder, then it went on again, and a new guy came in, and then another guy came in, and to be treated as the one estate. But if there were different builders, it's reasonable to expect that he sourced his supplies from different sources.
Deputy, could you please, Deputy, just stand up and say what you have to say?
If you check the estates that we're actually discussing that have pyrite, where some of the houses have been deemed to have pyrite, I'd like you to check it, Minister, and see how many of them were actually built through by the same builder. And because where they were, you can take for granted that he used the same stone, and the people who have got pyrite, their neighbours, mightn't have got it yet, but get it in time.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that, you know, there's a mandate for exemption being enacted later tonight and tomorrow on the Senate. And in the application of that will be a matter for the Department of the Environment to see who's exempt. And also, remember, the tax is a self-assessment tax, and people will put a value on their house when they're returning their farm to the Revenue Commissioners.
Please. Okay, just I have a point of order. I hope it's a point of order.
Important one, in view of the fact that you are required to put a question in a couple of minutes' time, and in order to allow deputies propose and second amendments which the Minister may wish to accept, can I ask through your office, Chair, if the Minister intends to signal to the House his willingness to accept any of the 67 amendments that have been put forward by members? In order that they can be moved and seconded, the Minister might wish to advise the House if he intends to accept any of them.
I don't know, can the Minister respond to that? I have no information on that. Yeah. But I think Deputy Doherty had a question. Please, Deputy Doherty.
Yeah.
Please, Deputy Doherty had a question.
I think everybody on this side of the House would welcome an extension of time, even if there's nothing else bar we go home. You know, after this, like, we're all the people here, I'm sure, wouldn't object to if the government were to propose even a small bit of amendment of time as we're getting into the amendment. Kyla, look, the cut-off time is just in the next minute, so can I just ask a question, and it's about the tax clearance certificates. The letters are going through the letterbox next Monday, starting off, and there'll be an assessment, there'll be a form which people have to fill in their assessment, their return to the revenue. Under this Act, and indeed the previous Act, there is a whole issue of those that are self-employed, and indeed members of the Oireachtas, in terms of we wouldn't be we wouldn't get a tax clearance certificate if we don't pay this charge. Can you explain, Minister, to the House, for somebody who doesn't send back a return and who the revenue deducts the money from source through their wages or their bank account or whatever means that is at their disposal under the Act, when will they be able to get a tax clearance?
Sorry, Deputy, I haven't time. I have to put the question.
I'm sorry. Can you just
Under
answer
the
that
order.
question?
No,
I think we were late starting, in fairness.
No, Deputy. This is an order of the House this morning. Finance Local Property Tax Amendment Bill 2013 Committee in remaining stages. As it now 10:30, I am required to put the following question according to the order of the Dáil this morning, this day, that the amendments set down by the Minister for Finance for committee stage and not disposed of are hereby made to the bill in respect of each of the sections undisposed of, that the section, or as appropriate, the section as amended, is hereby agreed to in committee. The title is hereby agreed to in committee. The bill as amended is accordingly reported to the House. Fourth stage is hereby completed and the bill is hereby passed. Chuck the Réal Cash Average Thaw. Chuck the Nagunya Average Neil. Chimgul Cash Richa. Would members please take their seats, as the vote will be taking place shortly. Item number 27, Finance Local Property Tax Amendment Bill 2013, Committee in remaining stages. The question is that the amendments set down by the Minister for Finance or for committee stage and not disposed of are hereby made to the bill in respect of each of the sections undisposed of, that the section, or as appropriate the section as amended, is hereby agreed to in committee. Title is hereby agreed to in committee. The bill as amended is accordingly reported to the House. Fourth stage is hereby completed. The bill is hereby passed, and on that question a division has been challenged. Tellers Thaw Deputies Paul Keogh and Emmett Stagg, Tellers Neil Deputies Sean O'Farrell and Angus Lusnutty. Neil Bashir, Thaw 62, Neil 41. Question is agreed. Fózol. Item number 27, Finance Local Property Tax Amendment Bill 2013, Committee in remaining stages. The question is that the amendments set down by the Minister for Finance are committee stage and not disposed of are hereby made to the bill. In respect of each of these sections undisposed of, the section or as appropriate, the section as amended is hereby agreed to in committee. The title is hereby agreed to in committee. The bill as amended is accordingly reported to the House. 4 stages hereby completed. The bill is hereby passed, and on that question a division has been challenged. Tellers Thaw Deputies Paul Keogh and John Lyons. Tellers Neil Deputies Sean O'Farrell and Angus O'Snuddy. 63, Neil 40. Question is carried. The bill will now be sent to the Senate. Tá an dáil ar athleoga, Láithreis